Chapter 853, God-Slaying Arrow. In the six-sided building of refinement, Zhou Feng and Nan Gongsheng slowly walked by the crater toward the depths where the tattered weapon stand was located. All the elite kings present were dead silent. No one dared to challenge them after Xuani Yuanwen did and failed. The kings all let out a breath as they warily looked at the backs of the two purple-haired figures with the duo's actions caught everyone's attention. Is this the true power of the left-eyed heavenly emperor? Nan Gongsheng took a deep breath as complex emotions appeared on his face. He was positive that they managed to successfully suppress everyone present. Ta, 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 ta. Zhou Feng and Nan Gongsheng walked with a weird rhythm as they approached the weapon stand on the other side of the crater. The terrifying heat pressured Zhou Feng's sacred lightning body. It was extremely tough even for the Blue Serpent King, who had a strong body and bloodline, to obtain one substandard god weapon on the weapon stand. Ice Imperial Spear. A layer of ice blue liquid flowed around Zhou Feng's body and formed a transparent ice blue barrier. Wayne tilde. The ice blue barrier was 1 yard long, and it protected Zhou Feng and Nan Gongsheng. Shu tilde. Steam appeared on the surface of the ice blue barrier as the heat started to erode it. As they truly got close to the weapon stand, the terrifying heat was enough to turn Void God Realm kings into ashes and injure emperors. A silver and purple ripple of light glittered around Nan Gongsheng within the ice blue barrier and helped resist the heat. However, sweat still started to appear on his forehead, and his feet were about to start burning. Wayne tilde. A faint golden light flashed around Zhou Feng's body as he used his strong physical force to take the heat head-on. The strength of my bloodline and body might be slightly weaker than Wei Jing, and Nan Gongsheng's body isn't as strong as the Thousand Changes illusionist dragons. Zhou Feng's eyes twinkled as he came to this conclusion. After all, the Blue Serpent King's body and bloodline were extremely close to the true dragon race, so it was obviously very strong. If the weapon stand was easy to reach, it wouldn't have been the Blue Serpent King's or Zhou Feng's turn. The other kings would have taken everything already. However, Zhou Feng didn't give up. His left eye locked onto the tattered weapon stand. There were 3 arrows, a shield, and a thin, dark green jade sword. All of those items should be substandard god weapons. It'll be very hard to obtain them, Zhou Feng thought. The Misty Spatial World was a support-type substandard god weapon that didn't have many offensive capabilities. The spade that the little thieving cat got was probably similar. It was most likely not an offensive weapon. Of the remaining 3 items, the arrows and the thin sword were offensive weapons while the shield was for defense. Spatial movement. Zhou Feng's left eye suddenly released a ripple that covered the 3 arrows, and a whirlpool appeared in the middle of the ripple. Wayne tilde. The air started to hum as each of the 3 arrows radiated a divine golden blood-colored light. The normal-looking rusty arrows became scarlet gold and released a penetrating divine light. Zhou Feng and Nan Gongsheng felt as if space itself had been pierced, and all the king's souls felt a sharp pain. They felt despair and fear, as if they were ruthlessly slaughtered. Those are God-slaying arrows. Although those arrows are small, they are each comparable to a substandard god weapon. Their combined value isn't any less than a normal substandard god weapon. The experts from Sky Suspension Palace and the Imperials recognized these arrows. At this moment, Zhou Feng and Nan Gongsheng had to face a sharp, penetrating aura that seemed able to pierce through heaven and earth. Nan Gongsheng's body became slightly cold. Although he was facing the terrifying heat of the furnace, his heart was cold. These 3 arrows are smaller, so they should be easier to obtain compared to the substandard god weapons that Xuani Yuanwen and the Imperials obtained. Zhou Feng's expression remained the same. Even if they were also substandard god weapons, these 3 arrows didn't have as many materials, and they hadn't been wielded by powerful experts like the other substandard god weapons. The other weapons had the intents and laws of powerful experts fused into their essence. Instinctively, Zhou Feng felt that obtaining these 3 arrows would be easier than the other weapons. The most important thing was that these 3 arrows had no owners. Zhou Feng, do you have any ideas? If can get your hands on those 3 god-slaying arrows and use them with your sky-locking bow, you'll be able to unleash unimaginable power, Nan Gongsheng said with slight interest. It's not too hard to obtain the arrows themselves, but getting to the weapon stand is. It would be good if we could get the 3 god-slaying arrows to fly out by themselves. Zhou Feng started to think. The heat at the very center was something that even emperors couldn't withstand. The Blue Serpent King couldn't do it, and Zhou Feng couldn't either unless his sacred lightning body suddenly broke through to a higher level or became extremely resilient against fire. Unfortunately, Zhou Feng still hadn't cultivated the fire of wind lightning yet. Meow meow. At this moment, the little thieving cat appeared holding a spade. Zhou Feng and Nan Gongsheng both glanced at the spade that the little thieving cat was holding. This spade also came from the weapon stand. Dang! The little thieving cat dug the spade into the ground, and sparks flew everywhere as a small hole appeared in the special material of the floor. Wayne tilde. At the same time, the arrows, the shield, and the thin sword all hummed. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The arrows, which were the smallest, flew into the air. Bang! The shield fell onto the ground, and the thin jade sword floated into the air and radiated a power that belonged to substandard god weapons. Nan Gongsheng instantly felt unable to breathe. Zhou Feng had recovered part of his emperor intent and his god spiritual eye was extremely resilient against mental energy, so he wasn't frightened. However, they both looked at the spade and the little thieving cat's paws with a weird expression. Dang! The spade and the little thieving cat's paws dug into the ground once again. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Some of the legendary materials nearby, such as the god-fallen metal, all quickly gathered toward this location. The spade in the little thieving cat's paws was like a magnet as all of the materials flew over. This scene made all of the king's eyes bulge out. Shua! With a wave of his hand, Zhou Feng put them away into his misty spatial world. Whoosh tilde. At this moment, one of the god-slaying arrows was flying toward this direction. Come! Zhou Feng raised his arm guard. Hu tilde shua. With a layer of white mist, the god-slaying arrow was devoured. So easy. The kings, who were holding their breath, were stunned. This was especially true for the three imperial princes. They used everything they had just to finally obtain one substandard god weapon, and one just flew right into Zhou Feng's lap. So that's why the misty spatial world isn't an ordinary storage treasure, it's a substandard god rank item. That means it can easily store other substandard god items. Furthermore, those god-slaying arrows don't even have their own consciousness. Nan Gongsheng understood the difficulty of obtaining a substandard god weapon by using another substandard god item was much lower than that one. If the three princes had their own substandard god storage item, they would have been able to tame the notched axe just as easily. Whoosh, whoosh. The other two god-slaying arrows flew in different directions, and the other king's souls almost exploded. Fear filled their bodies. The god-slaying arrows weren't the only items that were disturbed. The thin jade sword was as well. Quick! Don't let the purple-haired demonic duo get all those substandard god weapons. Some of the kings from the Imperials, Sky Sword Pavilion, the Duanmu family, and the other forces all took action. Of the Imperials, the domain-level Luozun and wrinkled elder charged toward one of the god-slaying arrows, while the cold black-robed female from Sky Sword Pavilion and Zhou Yufei charged toward the thin jade sword. We can't just ignore substandard god weapons. How about I go test the strength of the purple-haired demonic duo? The girl in apricot robes from Sky Suspension Palace gave a smile. Shua! The apricot-robed female flew forward with a flash of multicolored light, and her speed was greater than some domain-level kings. At this moment in time, everyone was fighting against each other, and the source of that was the little thieving cat. Meow! The little thieving cat dug the spade into the ground once again, and the shield hummed as a green beast phantom formed. Because the weight and size of the shield was so different, it wasn't disturbed in the same way. In terms of offense, I have the Qiankun sword, but I can't fully unleash its power. This shield is perfect for me. Fierceness flashed through Nan Gongsheng's eyes. After he spoke, a wicked silver-purple light radiated from his body, and a purple and blood-colored haze seeped out from him that made the nearby auras tremble. This was a power that belonged to an evil god, and its effect was comparable to Zhou Yufei's natural bloodline ability. Wayne tilde. As if sensing something, the shield in front of the weapon stand suddenly expanded to look like a small bronze door, and the ancient green beast phantom seemed to become real as it suddenly roared. The door-sized shield finally floated into the air and radiated the pressure of a substandard god weapon. It was more complete, so it was even better than the ones obtained by Xuani Uanwen and the Imperials. However, this meant that the pressure Nan Gongsheng had to face increased. Don't force it, Zhou Feng warned. The most likely reason that the beast phantom shield had sensed something was because of the evil god crystal. Only demigods and gods could truly use the power of substandard god weapons. After learning the holy wicked technique, Nan Gongxing's mastery of the evil god crystal's power had reached an entirely new level, otherwise he wouldn't have been able to raise the shield's attention. Go! A pair of green shoes on Zhou Feng's feet released a jet of green flames, and a golden light of physical force sparkled around him. An ice blue barrier covered Zhou Feng and Nan Gongxing as they reached the place where the Blue Serpent King duo had reached earlier. Smoke emanated from Zhou Feng's green shoes due to the extreme heat. Since the heat came mainly from the ground, the shoes blocked most of the heat for Zhou Feng. Nan Gongxing didn't have a strong body, so he stepped onto Zhou Feng's shoulders. He revealed a grateful look. While Zhou Feng was trying to chase after the other god-slaying arrows, he took the time to help Nan Gongxing. Voom! Silver-purple whips formed in Nan Gongxing's hand, and he launched them through the air and managed to wrap around the bronze beast phantom shield. Chapter 854, Immortal Soul. One of Nan Gongxing's feet stepped onto Zhou Feng's shoulder, so his entire body was above the ground. This meant that he had to only face 50 to 60% of the heat. Whoosh! An earth-grade silver whip in his hand managed to finally wrap itself around the bronze beast phantom shield with a flash of purple and silver. The earth-grade silver whip showed signs of melting. S2. The terrifying heat traveled across the whip and Nan Gongxing's palm started to smoke, but luckily, he was in Zhou Feng's ice imperial barrier, which decreased the heat. Come. Nan Gongxing circulated the holy wicked technique and his spatial techniques. A silver ripple formed near the surface of the earth-grade weapon, and a large suction force appeared. Shua! The bronze shield was pulled over and the pressure of a substandard god weapon surged, almost exceeding Nan Gongxing's limits. Nan Gongxing's face went completely red, but he activated his spatial domain at the critical moment, and a layer of purple and blood-colored mist rippled throughout the area. At this instant, a purple and blood-colored mark on Nan Gongxing's forehead blinked, and his hair turned completely purple and red. The wicked power radiating from him increased to a new level. Boom! His spatial domain, which had fused with the evil god crystal, seemed to have the ability of a little world as a bright beam of purple and blood-colored light engulfed the shield. Success! Excitement and joy flashed across Nan Gongxing's eyes. Zhou Feng had a praising expression. At the critical moment, Nan Gongxing's use of the evil god crystal became perfect. After cultivating the holy wicked technique, Nan Gongxing's control of the evil god crystal had reached a stunning level. The core of Nan Gongxing's spatial domain was the evil god crystal, and it was supported by many substandard god crystals. It could be said that, against any domain that wasn't a little world, Nan Gongxing's spatial domain was unrivaled. S2. Nan Gongxing's hand started to burn, and he immediately released the melting earth-grade weapon. Retreat for now. Zhou Feng gave a moan as his feet started to burn as well. He had stayed at the same location even longer than the Blue Serpent King. One had to know that the Blue Serpent King's body and bloodline were close to the true dragon race, and a nice dragon at that. The shoes on Zhou Feng's feet started to smoke, and they almost caught fire. Bing! Zhou Feng circulated his physical force, and he shot out of the area like a rocket as he headed in the direction of another god-slaying arrow. Crack! The instant he left the ground, Zhou Feng's shoes unleashed a jet of green flames before turning black. Whoosh! Zhou Feng and Nan Gongxing left the area they were just standing at an extremely fast speed. Their target was the second god-slaying arrow. There was now a total of 2 god-slaying arrows, and several Void God Realm Kings were fighting for the nearest one. Regardless of anything else, it was still a substandard god weapon. The one who had the biggest advantage at the moment was the apricot-robed female from Sky Suspension Palace. Come! The apricot-robed female gently tapped out with her finger, and beams of 3-colored light revolved in the air and interacted with a god-slaying arrow. In comparison to other weapons, it was easier to obtain the god-slaying arrow. The nearby kings were pushed back by the powerful 3-colored ray of light before they could even get close. This apricot-robed female was one of the 3 powerhouses of Sky Suspension Palace. This god-slaying arrow is mine, Zhou Feng said expressionlessly. The apricot-robed female smiled and said, if you have the ability, Then come take it. Substandard god weapons were something that even mystic light realm sacred lords and demigods couldn't resist. The apricot-robed female was interested in how strong Zhou Feng was, so she wanted to test his strength out. "Let me handle this." Nan Gongsheng snickered coldly as he turned into a flash of silver and purple and flashed toward the apricot-robed female. The apricot-robed female felt a surge of enormous wicked power crush over, and this force had the power of space merged into N. It was as quick as lightning and extremely hard to counter. Triple-layered lotus flame. The apricot-robed female yelled, and a three-colored light on her body suddenly shook and formed three lotuses. At this instant, the three lotuses seemed to blossom. Furthermore, every layer of these lotuses had different elements. The green, red, and purple colors represented wind, fire, and lightning respectively. Boom, bang. The three blossoming layered lotuses clashed together against the wave of purple and silver. This female is even slightly stronger than peak tier kings. Nan Gongsheng's expression became serious as a layer of purple and blood-colored light with sparkles of silver appeared around him. The sparkles of silver radiated a wicked force that could make the expressions of even emperors change. Crack, boom. Nan Gongsheng pushed his hands out, and the spatial domain behind him broke through the spatial domain of the apricot-robed female. "This person is so strange." The apricot-robed female's face went red as she retreated. This scene caused Xuani Yuanwen's and senior martial brothers Yuji's expressions to change. The news about Nan Gongsheng being terrifying in terms of physical attacks isn't fake, and he has indeed merged an evil god crystal into his spatial domain, senior martial brothers Yuji murmured. The most mysterious and scary person of the purple-haired demonic duo was obviously Zhou Feng, but Zhou Feng's cultivation was low. Apart from the fact that his body was relatively strong, his other physical aspects weren't. Zhou Feng was terrifying because of his abilities in the soul dimension. One was a monster in the physical dimension while the other was heaven-defying in the soul dimension. The purple-haired demonic duo was the perfect combination. "Come." Zhou Feng laughed as a layer of white mist blinked and engulfed the silver god-slaying arrow. The apricot-robed female steadied herself as waves shook her heart. The purple-haired demonic duo hadn't even attacked her together. The more mysterious Zhou Feng had done nothing. Nan Gongsheng alone was able to suppress her. In just one exchange, the apricot-robed female was pushed back, and the second god-slaying arrow was obtained by Zhou Feng. At the same moment, the third god-slaying arrow was obtained by Luo Zun and the wrinkled elder. Zhou Feng shook his head and didn't try to force things. As for the last substandard god weapon, the fight for the thin jade sword had reached the last stages as well. 18 Heaven Sword. A powerful beam of sword intent shot out from the eyes of the black-robed female from Sky Sword Pavilion, and a half-transparent crystal sword formed a whirlwind of sword light. Boom, boom, shua. Every time the crystal sword moved, whirlwinds would roar. In the outside world, it would be enough to rip apart mountains and lakes. Normal Void God Realm kings weren't able to block even one sword of hers. In terms of strength, she was comparable to Zhu Wuji before he had entered Ziyang Palace. However, her opponent was even stronger. Ding, ding, ding. A purple figure flew into the air. Her skin was like crystal as it easily blocked the barrage of attacks. "You're not my match." Zhou Yufei extended a jade-like hand that didn't seem to even belong to a human, and a ripple of purple instantly ripped apart the black-robed girl's offense. The black-robed girl had already used her killing moves, but she wasn't able to even injure the opponent. A bitter smile formed on her face. Sang, sang. Right at this moment, a layer of silver and purple flew over to where they were fighting. Purple-haired demonic duo. The black-robed girl's expression changed as she revealed a wary look. The little sword saint had turned into a sword at the moment and was currently in a mysterious state. He was probably the only one who could handle this most troublesome purple-haired demonic duo, and no one knew whether he was dead or alive. "Yufei, allow me to help you." Zhou Feng waved his hand, and the white mist of a little world blocked the dark green jade sword from escaping. "Brother Feng, you came just in time." Zhou Yufei revealed a joyful expression as she circulated her little world and formed a pincer attack with Zhou Feng. At the same time, her spiritual race bloodline summoned a large surge of yuan qi, which covered the dark green jade sword. Nan Gongsheng waved his hands, and silver-purple beams shot toward the substandard god weapon. A while later, with their combined power, Zhou Yufei managed to successfully obtain the thin jade sword. Thanks, Brother Feng, and Senior Marshal Brother Nangong. This substandard god weapon seems to be of the wood element, so if I give it to Senior Marshal Brother Duanmu, he might be able to unleash more of its power, Zhou Yufei said joyfully. It was extremely difficult for void god realms to unleash the power of a substandard god weapon. Maybe someone as strong as Xuani Yuanwen could try, but it wouldn't be very efficient. Putting aside substandard god weapons, normal emperors would find it hard to unleash the full power of an item even for heaven-grade weapons and inheritance sacred weapons. Any substandard god weapons obtained here would most likely be given to the forces behind whoever obtained them, and they could become killing cards that could affect the destiny of the entire continent. Of course, Zhou Feng's Misty Spatial World was different. It was only a support type item, so it didn't have a high requirement for cultivation. Since the Duanmu family had obtained one substandard god weapon, they were obviously overjoyed, but the one and only ancient god weapon in the building of refinement hadn't been obtained yet. In the air, the swordlight that was the little sword saint started to merge with the rusty bronze sword that was giving off a green sword light. Everyone could see that the little sword saint's hand was already on the tattered ancient god sword. So weird. The little sword saint's tree yuan and life aura have reached the limit, but his soul and sword intent have reached an entirely new level. Zhou Feng was surprised by what his left eye saw. The little sword saint had burnt his tree yuan and soul to turn into a sword, but this actually increased the power of his soul. In theory, if one's soul became stronger, their lifespan would also rise, but unfortunately, the little sword saint's body had reached its limit. His life force was starting to wither. Senior sword saint gained the recognition of the ancient god weapon, but unfortunately, his life has reached its end. The black-robed girl and company from Sky Sword Pavilion had regretful and sympathetic expressions, and everyone present revealed respectful looks. Some kings sighed and started to retreat. Apart from the little sword saint, no one else had such a high understanding of the sword Tao or the courage to give up their life and transform into a sword. The only one that the ancient god's sword recognized was the little sword saint. Zhou Feng spoke in a solemn tone, although life will always come to an end, the soul can remain immortal. Immortal soul. The black-robed girl and company from Sky Sword Pavilion shook and couldn't help but start to think. Wen Jiang. As if sensing something, the bright sword light that the little sword saint had turned into suddenly started to dim.